program that we've ourselves learned. Julie?
If everybody, I got a really bad feedback, so I'm thinking somebody wasn't muted on that one.
Okay.
Let me move forward. There you go. So, can you see it now, Kelly Jo?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
These specific topics were comprised of feedback from NAEHCY members. We had sent out a professional development member survey a while ago, maybe earlier this year or late last year after the last conference. And these were some of the topics that came through of what our members are really looking to learn more about. And so the webinars and our professional development plan moving forward are going to be based on these topics, and then the webinars will fall under these topics, so we can hit all of the pieces of the 10 liaison duties. And where did these duties come from? These duties came from the non-regulatory guidance. As a McKinney-Vento liaison for the Clark County School District, this is really where we go to pull our information and to say, this is why we need to do this. This is why we need to collaborate with different agencies. And this is really our justification of how we move our program forward and how we grow. And so the 10 duties really come from this specific piece. What are the responsibilities of the local liaison for homeless children and youth? So in the next few slides, we're going to go through them one by one, and then how the topics are going to be interacting with those. Liaison duty 1, homeless children and youths are identified by school personnel and outreach and coordination activities with other entities and agencies. So this is really just the basics and the overview of the law, how we are working with other departments and agencies and the COC, and tips and tricks if you're just starting out. We thought that was an important piece, and especially with McKinney-Vento and foster care, there's a lot of questions out there about awaiting foster care coming out of the law. So what you need to know, how those departments work together, or in many areas across the country, the liaison does both. You're also the foster care liaison and the McKinney-Vento liaison. So how those two laws work together. So liaison duty 2, how they're enrolled in and have the equal opportunity to succeed. So really when we're looking at this, we're talking about the enrollment process of how students are identified, or how are they eligible, and how they're getting enrolled in school, and really the organization of all the different pieces. So in the webinars that under these topics, we're going to talk about the student residency forms and questionnaires and really practical implementation of housing questionnaires, because it looks different across the country again, and having samples or information from smaller school districts, rural, urban school districts. And so we're looking to get a good variety of information from there. Also focusing specifically on the law, like I said, eligibility, enrollment, school of origin, transportation, the dispute process, and really how it all works together to serve our youth experiencing homelessness. Sorry, Julie, are you taking? Okay.
There we go. Sorry, my I was unmuted there. So if you duty 3 is really looking at those additional resources for those families that they're eligible for. So looking and making sure that our families that are experiencing homelessness have access to all of those programs that are support to our students. So our Head Start, our early Head Start, making sure that they have access to early interventions through special education and other preschool programs administered by the LEA. So with this webinar topic, we really are kind of focusing on that early childhood and access to intervention. Our next webinar is actually going to fall under this duty in this category. So if that is something you're interested, please make sure you sign up for the next webinar. So liaison duty 4 is really about making sure that us as liaisons are giving those referrals to families, knowing what those services are within our community so that our families can have all the resources that they need outside of school to be successful. So making sure we know where we can refer families to for health, dental, mental health, and substance abuse services, along with housing services and other appropriate services. So making sure that we in our communities are connected to our local continuum of cares and our coordinated entry system for those families so that they're able to access housing and shelter as needed that's available to them. So with this, we're looking from that list from the professional development of collaboration with our community partners and how we can do that, working with the child welfare system and navigating through the systems and how we can work together. And then liaison and housing, what are the responsibilities of who and what are the best ways in which the two housing and schools can work together to serve our homeless students. So for liaison duty 5, this is really again about making sure that our parents and guardians are informed of all of the educational and related opportunities for their children, helping making sure that they know that the parents are able to come and chaperone a field trip, are able to help in the lunchroom, making sure that our parents know when parent-teacher conferences are, making sure that they know their students are able to participate in extracurricular activities and anything else that might be needed for students to be successful within school. So with these, our webinar topics are really going to focus around parent engagement, and just the basics and overview are all things that will cover liaison duty 5. Liaison duty 6 is making sure that the educational rights are posted in public places. So I know here in our community, we make sure that the NCHE posters or similar have been posted all in areas in which homeless families frequent. So in our public libraries, in our soup kitchens, in free meal places, at all of our meet up and eat up locations across for the summer, food services, in our public libraries, making sure our shelters are aware of what the rights of our homeless students are. So really making sure that any place that a homeless person would be likely to frequent, making sure that the rights of a homeless student in schools are in that location so that they have easy access to them. So when looking at this, we'll be looking at the enrollment process topic and our McKinney-Vento basics to cover the law to help us make sure that we're on track with liaison duty number 6.
Liaison duty number 7, we're looking at the enrollment disputes, and we know that looks different, again, across different districts, from rural, smaller districts to large urban districts, and how the process may look different. And so this liaison duty is really around also incorporating school administrators and the interactions with the McKinney-Vento programs in their area, and so that everyone understands the rights of our youth experiencing homelessness and how the McKinney-Vento programs can support the students in school, and really how this dispute process is addressed. Liaison duty 8. 8 is looking at unaccompanied youths and transportation services and school avoidance. So really, again, this is going back to the basics of the law, the overview of determining eligibility and providing services, offering school of origin and their rights for school of origin, their transportation options, and also that the youth are able to fully participate in school activities in order to align with the law. So liaison duty 9 is school personnel receiving professional development and other supports. And I think this is a really important piece that we're starting to expand with our professional development webinars and topics. And the second part of this webinar is introducing you to a program that we do believe is going to help us learn from each other on what kind of activities we're all using for sensitivity and awareness, how you do trainings or provide awareness activities for school personnel. That's from clerks, registrars, teachers, administrators, and really anyone in your school district who are working with our population of students. And liaison duty 10 is really focusing on youth who are experiencing homelessness and are unaccompanied and are looking to move on to higher education opportunities, that they are informed of their status as independent students on the FAFSA, and looking at how you can connect students to higher education opportunities as well. Are there any questions at this time as to the liaison duties and how we incorporate all of that?
There is a question in the chat from Andy.
Can you please provide a scenario in which a student might qualify for a district residency protocol allowing the enrollment of an unaccompanied youth living with a district patron, and explaining circumstances in which that student would and would not qualify for McKinney-Vento homeless unaccompanied youth and unaccompanied youth who does not qualify? Okay, so I believe this is what you're asking, making the determination between a student who is without a parent or guardian and that they're living in a stable, fixed, regular, and adequate situation, that they are not considered homeless, but they would be an unaccompanied youth. I believe that's what I'm reading right now. And it's our district currently has been going through this transition, and it is a really difficult piece to separate. But what we have found in our district was we needed to find other ways to support students who are unaccompanied youth, but they don't qualify for both. So let me just go back, right? So just for McKinney-Vento eligibility, they have to be fixed, regular, lacking a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence and living in a homeless situation. To be an unaccompanied homeless youth, you also have to be living without a parent or guardian. So our district has separated those two definitions, and what we've had to do is find other resources for the adult taking care of the unaccompanied youth who has been there in a fixed, regular, and adequate situation for a while. We've partnered with other agencies that really, we're calling it the case of the missing paperwork, you know, that you are helping them, giving them resources to support their situation, but that they really do not qualify as a McKinney-Vento student. Does that answer your question, Andy?
And I think too, we will have a webinar coming up in the fall around some legalities of McKinney-Vento, and this might be another good place to kind of discuss that further with the difference between an unaccompanied youth and an unaccompanied homeless youth. And then we had another question come through directly over that was just asking about if we were able to print the PowerPoint. We will be sending these out after the webinar is over so that everyone will have access to that as well.
Okay. So I guess we're going to move on to our NAEHCY talks and the webinar follow-up.
So with every webinar we always have great conversation during the webinar. There's great topics. We just learned about kind of how we're going to format and choose our topics and our presentations for this year under NAEHCY and what that looks like. But we always find that a lot of our conversation and a lot of the conversation between those on the call stops with the webinar. So with that, we were trying to come up with a way that we could continue that conversation, that we could dive a little bit deeper, that we could have individuals across the country connect on a different level to be able to share resources back and forth and how things are working in your districts and on the ground. So with that, we have created a way that we are able to hopefully have this conversation continue. And with that, we have decided that we were going to use Slack. Slack is a app that can be used on a desktop or a mobile device that is a collaborative hub where you can share all sorts of different scenarios, situations, forms. Basically anything you put into Slack will show up the exact way you put it in. So if you put in a link to a survey, that link to the survey will show up just the way you put it in. If you put in a Google Doc or another type of Word doc, it will show up as that Word doc in there, along with being able to have that open feed and open questions for us all to interact within the app. So many organizations are actually turning to Slack over email because it's real-time communication. It's similar to like the old AOL Instant Messenger / chat room. So more nowadays, kind of like a WhatsApp or a Google Hangout rooms is something that Slack is similar to, but a little bit more robust. So with NAEHCY Talks, we'll be utilizing a Slack channel for each of our webinars and being able to have that time dedicated for someone to be in the channel, which we'll get into the difference between them in a second, to really be able to be in there and answer questions. So following every webinar for about a half an hour, the presenters will be live within Slack and answering questions real time, and then monitoring the workspace for another week or so as questions arise throughout the next week. So after the webinar, or at the very end of it, we will share with you the link to the channel for this PowerPoint. So you'll be able to log right in with the instructions on your screen, which we'll share with you as well after. So you'll just click the link, you'll enter your email address, you'll verify your account and create your own password, and then be able to just be right into our workspace and what that looks like for our NAEHCY Talks. So when you log in, the purple box you see on your screen will be the left side of your desktop or your app. This is kind of your go-to spot. In Slack, a specific workspace, so the space in which different topics are held is called NAEHCY Talks for our purposes. So within there, you'll see there's channels. There's the general channel, which is just everyone is automatically enrolled. It's just general random or general inquiries, topics, conversation. Then you'll see that there is a hashtag PD intro. That's the channel. It's going to be specifically for this webinar that you'll be able to ask questions related to this webinar. We can actually post this PowerPoint into the channel as well so that you are able to pull it right from there. And then random is just that, it's random. A lot of companies and organizations use random as sharing funny pictures or memes or pictures of their pets or whatnot, but it is what it is, it's very random. In addition, there are direct messages. So at the bottom of the screen where you'll see direct messages, you'll see on this one you have Slack the Slack bot, Kelly Jo, and myself. And with that, you can direct message and one-on-one ask questions to anybody who's in that channel who has direct messages turned on. So if you hear that somebody has a great way in which they are utilizing a certain duty within their districts, you can direct message that person and dive a little bit deeper with them on how they're using that if you don't want to have it in the open forum itself. So this is, again, we'll have each channel for each webinar open for 30 minutes following each webinar. It'll continue for another week, and the presenter will make sure that they're going in and monitoring and answering questions as they come through for that. So here is what it looks like live. So when you're in Slack, this is what you'll see. So you'll see here that we are in the PD intro channel, and I could go ahead and say really anything I wanted in the chat box. And anyone who is logged in would be able to kind of see that message and be able to respond to it as well. Your Slack bot, which is here, the Slack bot is where you can kind of ask questions and get answers. It's almost like a little help desk within Slack itself. And then your direct messages, you can send whoever's in your channel just a message where you two can have that space together. Then here is your general, where you just have the things, and then random. So they all kind of look the same for that.
And you can also post documents on there. So if you're direct messaging one person in who you've heard from, or someone had said something that sparked your interest, you can direct message them and share documents. You know, you can equate this to, I was a former teacher, and you can also share lesson plans and share organizational strategies, whatever you want to do in order to get your information out there.
So with that, you can turn, when you're in the NAEHCY Talks workspace, you can click the little down arrow next to NAEHCY Talks and go to preferences and adjust your notifications so that you're able to get emails when someone responds to you, turn on notifications if you're on your smartphone, and all sorts of different things and ways in which you can customize Slack so it works best for you. So we have put the link for the Slack channel into the chat box so that anyone who wanted to, as the webinar ends, could go ahead and go into the Slack and join it themselves and play around and see what it looks like, and see if it's something that'll work for them. This webinar is really just that overview of kind of what professional development is going to look like going forward this year for our webinars and what our webinars look like, and ways in which we can further our communication styles.
Are there any questions?
I see a bunch of people joining already, so that's great. I'm not seeing any additional questions coming through the chat.
So presenters will be on there for 30 minutes following the conclusion of each webinar, and then it'll be open for, that channel will be open for 1 week after the day of the webinar. So you can go back in there, log back in, and look at what's been said in the meantime, and just make sure you set your notifications so that you know when something new has been posted.
There is a question about, will we be logging into Slack for upcoming webinars? No, webinars will still be done through this format, but the follow-up conversation will be done through Slack. And we are looking to do webinars about once a month for all of our different. There's a question if Slack archives conversations. It does.
We have a few latecomers. So for those of you who are arriving late, this will be provided as a recording, and also instructions will be given out on MailChimp regarding how to access the PowerPoint slides and how to participate in the follow-up to today's webinar. Both presenters will be available on the follow-up venue, which is in Slack. The link is provided in the chat. They'll be there for up to 30 minutes following the closing of this presentation, and up to 1 week. They will facilitate the questions that appear in Slack.
And I see everyone posting in general for NAEHCY talks. If you would click on the channel PD intro, that's where it would be specifically about our webinar follow-up.
And if you're looking in Slack, I'm going to go back here a slide for you so you can see where those channels would be. So if you look here on this purple spot on your screen, you'll see channels, you'll see general, and then you'll see PD intro. And PD intro is where we're going for all this follow-up communication. If there are no other questions here, we're going to head over to Slack and answer some questions there. We appreciate you all being on the call, and the Slack is archived, so you'll be able to go back in and see those conversations even after we have finished answering them.
Thank you, Kelly Jo and Julie, for your presentation today. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Again, you'll receive instructions on how to access today's presentation, and we hope that you join Kelly Jo and Julie on Slack. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.